Happens. Yeah. Clean living. Yeah. Yeah.
There goes.
Probably better to see.
He has not, he has not tried, he has not.
Minute and a half warning.
He's not good at that.
Where you from? Here, Springfield. Oh, okay.
Chance to sound check.
Dr. Quo? Dr. Quo? Yeah. That was a high? Class, yeah. Yeah, we have one.
No, test. 1, 2, 3.
It's a hockey player.
What? We'll play around with it and see if I can.
No.
Yeah, so very cool. We got some students from Drury, SPU, OTC, one from MSU, Miss Carol.
Go back.
SPU. Yeah, a couple of Irish is our mission coordinates with our interns and stuff. You met Irish?
Is that too dark? Is that too dark?
Okay, so. Run to somewhere after this, perhaps, but yeah, we can get together. Let me email or something like that. It's just WHESTER. HESTER. Yep, W Hester at mccoe.org. Yep. Thank you. Yeah, that's okay. Likewise, thank you. Okay. We're missing.
Philip, we're ready for you. Go ahead and do a sound check.
Are you ready? Yeah.
I don't know why it started the stream. I don't know what the heck is going on. Great. I don't know.
Okay, I think we have everyone here. Shannon. Okay, guys, continue with our Cyber Talk series. We do this once a month. Tonight, we're going to talk about critical infrastructure and OT. We have Mr. Phil Copeland from the Army Corps of Engineers. He is the Director of Cybersecurity Infrastructure, Critical Infrastructure. They're actually hosted out of Branson, Missouri. We have this resource right here in our region. It's down at Branson. As the crow flies that way, whenever you fly down there. But it's a great opportunity to learn about what they're doing. He's going to tell you more about it, but as you hear about the convergence of IT and OT, you're going to hear about that tonight. They were worried about PCLs and all kinds of controllers and so forth like that. Typically, a lot of IT guys just think about IT. OT is going to be there, and you're going to see it on your networks. If you're managing networks, your customers are going to ask to hook up these OT devices, and he's going to tell you more about it. So, over to you, Phil.
Oh, hello. Hi, everybody. So I'm Phil Copeland. So I have two roles. I'm the Director of the Critical Infrastructure Cybersecurity, and I'm the National Cybersecurity Manager for the Operational Technology Corps of Engineers. So a little bit about me. So I started out with Southwestern Power Administration. And then from there, I went to work for the Corps of Engineers, and I put in the first SCADA system. Everybody knows what SCADA is? Supervisory control. Oh, that's still weird. I like it. Supervisory control and data acquisition. It's basically what controls your systems out in the real world. There's also control systems, industrial control systems. We call it operational technology. And so operational technology, everything encompasses under operational technology versus information technology. So I worked for the Corps of Engineers, put in the first SCADA system a long time ago. So I computerized Tabor Rock and Beaver Dam. Claim to fame, it was all electromechanical, and I went in and computerized both those dams. And back then, that was pretty interesting to go from zero to hero in about 9 months, putting that system in. Fortran, program Fortran. Anybody heard of Fortran? There we go. I hated Fortran. I hated COBOL. But So I did that, and then from there I went to Tri-State Generation and Transmission, which is the largest power company in the Western grid. And I was the manager over the energy management system and SCADA and the telecommunication department for Tri-State. So what does that mean? You had microwave. Back then you had OC, which is optical radios. They ran it around between 6 and 8 gigahertz. And then the fiber optic system and the energy management system, that's what controls the grid. So there's 4 power marketing agencies, and I'll talk about those as I get through the brief, at least starting the brief. So that's who controls the local electric system, so the grid of the United States. And then you got the larger power companies that handle the base load. They're putting out the generation to be able to support the grid. And one thing about Table Rock, just down the street from us, which has 9 gates open right now, kind of pretty if you want to drive down and see the water coming through the gates. It's for automatic generation control. There's not many facilities that will allow like Southwestern Power Administration to be able to control and move units up and down to be able to affect the grid. And what you're trying to do is you're controlling frequency. And you're doing that by controlling megawatts, and you're controlling voltage of the power line. So around here, your high voltage is 161 kV, kilovolts, and then 230 kilovolts, and there's some 345 kilovolt lines. And you get in those substations, it'll raise the hair on the back of your neck. So there's a distance that you don't want to ever go in between, because it'll come out and get you when you're in a grid environment. So that's kind of my history. Then I came back to the Corps of Engineers, took a major pay cut coming from private industry, back to the Corps. My home was in Branson, Missouri. I grew up in Branson, and that's where my parents were living. So I made a family decision to come back here and work for the Corps. And once I got here, the need for cybersecurity was just now starting for operational technology. And so in 2011, I started securing control systems around the Corps of Engineers. And then in 2014, I was appointed over everything in the Corps. The Corps, you say, so, you know, I'll kind of use it kind of intertwined and stuff. So my responsibility is I'm over the cybersecurity for operational technology for the Corps of Engineers worldwide. And so the Corps of Engineers is the largest federal owner of critical infrastructure in the United States. So when you're looking at, like, Table Rock is a hydropower dam, when you're looking at what all the country does, we have 75 hydropower plants across the United States. We have 192 navigation locks. That's, the control that goes up and down the Mississippi, the Ohio, and then down the south parts of the United States. You have the Gulf Intercoastal Waterway, and so there's, and then you have flood risk management, which we have 705 dams that are holding back water above major cities in the United States. And these are all controlled by control systems. And to go along with that, we have hurricane protection systems, we have pumping stations, we have saltwater barriers, freshwater barriers. So we secure the drinking water system for Washington, D.C., and we have some sites in the Corps that are so critical that you can't talk about them in an open environment like this. So we'll rock and roll here. So in a little bit about the mission is, so over here is a engineering regulation. So the Corps of Engineers works off engineering regulations. In that you have to say, hey, this is what mission that we're gonna take care of. And then you have to kind of go through and say what, who, how, when, and ours with the lab, the national lab is in Branson, Missouri also. So here's down the bottom are the business lines that we protect. And then over here are some of the facility systems that are considered operational technology, electronic security systems, fire, life and safety, traffic control. We have up in Cape Cod, there's some major thoroughfare that comes through, and it's got a marine traffic control center. We secure that. So you name it, we do a lot of moving around, traveling across the country to keep our systems secure. So the difference between IT and OT, I have skill sets in both IT and OT, so I can talk the jargon. Anybody wants to talk about it, I'll go IT. If they want to go OT, I can go IT, OT. So we were established in 2014, so I was appointed over the Civil Works mission. So Civil Works is the part of USACE that owns all the critical infrastructure. We have two different missions. One is military programs mission. We are the Army. And then we have Civil Works, which is a civil mission. And you talked about, Wes talked about the sectors, 16 sectors. So I'm the federal chair for the dam sector. So when you get into, if you want to go out to the dam sector, you can see documents that we wrote from the cybersecurity working group. We wrote one about how to create a cybersecurity program. We've got roadmaps, different things, whatever you like to see. We have some pretty good documentation in the dam sector. So we all work together with the sectors. Personally, I stay engaged with the energy sector and the water sector. So energy sector is ran by Department of Energy, water sector is ran by EPA. And so the dam sector is ran by Homeland Security. So they all have different leadership that takes it over. So I work with CISA a lot when it comes to the dam sector. Some appointments, we have formal agreements with Bureau of Reclamation. They're the second largest owner of hydropower in the United States. And then the Department of Energy, big DOE, we have an agreement with them. And I have a couple other appointments. The Assistant Secretary for Army Civil Works, I'm his representative. He's a he, so I say he. But in any meeting that takes place in the Pentagon, I go and represent the Secretary of Army for OT. And we had a international exercise, OT exercise. Anybody know what the 5 Eyes are? You ever heard of the 5 Eyes? So we were the SMEs for the UK and New Zealand. So they didn't have much OT experience, so we helped them with securing their networks. Kind of interesting to talk to those folks. I'm like, what'd you say again? Say that one more time. So this is us at a glance. Big United States, I have 32 direct employees that work for me, and they're spread across the United States, and some are here in Branson. But at all the individual projects, I have information system security officers and system administrators that work indirectly for me for the cybersecurity perspective. So our partners, you can't do this without partners. So we work directly with the NSA, Department of Energy, Bureau of Rec, Western Area Power, Southeastern Power Administration, SWAPA. NREL is a national lab in Denver. They do renewable energy. And the U.S. Army Cyber Protection Brigade, that is a huge partner with us. So, cyber attackers have a purpose in our world. Their world is their attacks are to disrupt society, take down the United States in whatever way they can do it. So the way that the capabilities are flooding cities, shutting down the grid, blocking commerce up and down the Mississippi. That's millions and millions and probably billions, I should say billions of dollars worth of commerce that flows up and down our riverways in the United States. So what do we look at? So we look at the different systems inside our infrastructure. So you have hydropower, and you have, so this is your floodgate, container gates. That's the big gates you see if you've ever been to a dam. That's the big container gates that are sitting up there. You have hydropower, you have switch yards, the big power switch yards. And then we have fish ladders that are moved out west. They move the salmon for tribal issues out in the northwest. And then flood risk management. So when you're talking about what's critical, what are the critical things that an adversary or a nation state in our case would want to get to? What would they like to shut down? So they'd like to shut down the grid. They would like to shut down commerce. They would like to flood cities. Then you have your auxiliary stuff, your electronic security system, things that are protecting the physical access into the environment. So you have your external threats, then you have your internal threats from insider type capabilities. So I'm going to get into this just a little bit. I'm not going to freak anybody out, but I'll let you guys kind of read. I'm going to talk about just a couple of those. If you've seen the news, you pay attention to cyber attacks. So you have Salt Typhoon. Anybody heard of Salt Typhoon in here? You have Volt Typhoon. Anybody heard of Volt Typhoon? And Dragonfly. And then who's the other big one? Let's see. I went blank on the other Russian adversary. Sandworm. So they all come at you from different directions. So Dragonfly, they use malware. They use malware to attack your systems. And so did Russia. That's kind of Russia's MO. They're gonna get in. So that means they come in and they masquerade as they're a part of your network. And from the detection standpoint, we can detect any type of malware type capability and very easily. But Volt Typhoon is a different animal to try to detect when they're in your networks. And so we had to develop special techniques to be able to detect Salt Typhoon in your control system, in your critical infrastructure. So any questions on any of these?
Can you talk about how you detect Salt Typhoon?
Huh?
Can you talk about how you detect Salt Typhoon?
Not I can't.
But I figured I might as well ask.
It's really impressive.
So I took it. I had this marked as CUI, but since we're streaming it, I took it down. So I won't talk about anything that is above the classification we're in. Yes, sir.
How do you manage all of that with only 32 people? Like, that's crazy to me for 32 people. That's a lot.
Well, it's called being efficient.
Right? Being efficient, that's
And
fair.
hiring the best expertise that you can get.
That's fair.
And then you're training the folks. It's train the trainer. So you're training the folks that are in your infrastructure how to detect what's going on. And so it's not just us. You got thousands of people that are out there in corporate years that we teach them how to detect anomalies.
That makes sense.
Then I'll get into our intrusion detection system in a little bit also. So we have this amazing exercise. We do it every 2 years. It's on. We started in 2020, and we simulated sandworm. I believe that was the first year. No. first year, I can't remember, second year was Sandworm, and this past year, we have USACE has a red team that is NSA certified. And so we brought them in and they simulated both Typhoon and Dragonfly. And so we had to detect two different adversaries in our networks. And down in Branson in our lab, we have control systems that we probably have 100 different types of control systems down there. So we set it up in the lab environment, and we just let the red team go wild. And if they could burn up a programmable audio controller, PLCs, that's what we said, have at it, and we'll just rebuild it, and we're done. But they had to work against the defenses of the folks that were in the exercise also. So it was you were protecting your networks and you were defending against them. So this year, we brought in a SONET system, so a fiber optic network. We had the Southwestern Power dispatch. The administrator for Southwestern Power was the dispatcher throughout the exercise. 2 weeks exercise. It's intense. You walk in the door at 8 o'clock and you go home at 5 o'clock and it feels like you've been there 10 minutes. That's how intense the exercise is. But we've got to get better at what we're doing. And this is one of the only exercises in the country where you're simulating real world, using real equipment to hold an exercise. We had Department of Homeland Security, the lead from DHS, we had the dam sector leads. So all kinds of folks there, and these were your active participants. And so they were the folks that were defending, protecting, and then hunting for the adversary. In supply chain risk management, it's huge. If you guys aren't looking at your supply chain risk management, what you're bringing into your environments, that's probably the number one risk the United States has right now is the supply chain risk management threats. You'd be surprised at what comes into your environment. We just did an instant response where some people bought a mini PC into the environment. They didn't let us know, and we detected it, and we went in and we did an instant response on it. And so you'll find chipsets that are from Chinese, different areas, chipsets. You'll have your computers will beacon out. They'll be phoning home to adversary networks. So when you're in this world, you don't sleep much. You're on 24/7, and you're ready to move out whenever you need to. So this is our program. In a nutshell, this is the program that runs the Corps of Engineers. So wow, that's what you got. Well, when you think about it from holistically, what you have to do. So starting across. First thing you got to know what you have. So you got to get an inventory of what you have out in the field. If you don't know what's out there, then how do you protect it? And so that's the first thing we did. Then we had to set priorities, because if you don't set priorities of what's important, then everything's a priority, and then you won't get anything done. You'll just sit there and spin your wheels. So we set priorities in our program. And then we started to create what we call interim secure state. So it's a checkbox, but we just started going through the stuff that says what's important that we need to make sure we're putting security controls on in our infrastructure. Let's see if I can, yeah. Uh-oh. So I'm gonna have to use my mouse pad here. So interim secure state, so what you're trying to do, you're trying to protect your physical security, start out with, that's gates, guns, and guards. And then as you drill into your infrastructure, then you start protecting your cyber assets from physical access to your physical. Boundary protection can be from physical aspect, it can be your gates, it can be your cameras, your sensors across the gates, it can be different things like that. For boundary protection on cyber, of course, that's your firewalls, your encryption, your monitoring, different things. And then the critical piece is when you're in your network. This goes for IT and OT, is your network segmentation. So if you can separate your networks and put in security zones, if an adversary gets into your system, you're gonna catch them as they move through a security zone. So flat networks where you don't have an IP plan in place of how to I'm going blank on what that's called, but I'll get to it a little bit later. And then secure configurations for your stuff, so that's STIGs. For us, DISA, Department, I forget what DISA stands for, it's a DOD agency.
Defense Information Systems Agency.
Huh?
DISA?
Yeah.
Defense Information Systems Agency.
Yeah, that's a guy, that's the one.
6 years.
They create STIGs, and so so you run those on your servers, your workstation, your IT components of a system, and then we build our own secure OSs. So if you took an OS that we put into an operating system that you put into an OT environment, it would not work in an IT environment. We strip off anything that has to do with networking, IIS, anything that you might see in a IT environment, we strip it off. And you got least privilege. Everybody knows what least privilege is for students. Updating patches. Now, for OT, we don't just patch on Patch Tuesday. That's dangerous for us. Now, in IT, absolutely, you better keep those patches rolling. But for us, if you put a patch in and you don't test it thoroughly, then you're as bad as the adversary because you just took down a system and you got to figure out how to get those reversed. Has anybody seen the Purdue model? You guys familiar with the Purdue model? Anybody? So it's just your layers. It's your layers of it's typically used in an OT environment, and it goes all the way down into, so layer 0 is what's in your facilities, down with your sensors, your temperature gauges, things like that. Then as it starts going up, you have different layers of defense until you get up into your IT side. And for us, we monitor the devices that are layer 0. They're serial, anybody heard of serial? And so serial, then you have analogs. You can have like 0 to 10 volts. You can have 0 to 5 volts. You can have 4 to 20 milliamps. And so you're monitoring those signals down at the lower level. And then as you move up, your PLC, programmable logic controller STIGs, there wasn't any PLC STIGs for anything across any environment. And we created the first PLC STIG, and we rolled it out at our exercise. And then we sent that to Army Cyber Command, and then they rolled it up to the NSA. And so now it's going to be published. DISA again, they didn't want to work with us on pushing out the STIG because they didn't do it. Some little group out of Branson, Missouri created the first PLC STIG. But now it's out there, and people can go out and get it and use it to secure harden your controllers. Waterfall for us, that's a data diode. So how do we keep our systems protected? We push data two-way interfaces, two-way interconnections are very dangerous. OT, SCADA, control systems, that's a very fragile environment. And you can, sometimes you can watch the news and they'll talk about how fragile SCADA is and how it can be dumped over. They never got to us. I can say that with a straight face and right here and say that they have never gotten into our networks. Defender for IoT, that's our sensor environment. We use that for as a network sensor. And then we bring in other mechanisms into that environment. And ours is not called a SOC, it's called an OT Monitoring Center. So we bring in syslog, we bring in sysmon, we have EDRs like Wes talked about. We don't use SentinelOne. They didn't meet our criteria for OT, but it's a very good EDR. And then we use Zeek, we use Bro. There's tools out there used to analyze the data. Then our last one out is the waterfall. That's how we push out to outside networks that need any information from your control system. So network segmentation is kind of what it looks like. You build security zones, and that way, if someone does get into your network, we will catch them, and we will run them out quickly. So come on in, give it a shot if they can. But we're pretty good at what we do. I'll say that we're probably the best.
Did you just invite all these hackers here?
So you know there is thousands and thousands of attacks on operational technology every hour. So if you can say that you've kept them at bay for this amount of time, you're doing a pretty good job. So you can't rest on your laurels. We use IPsec encryption. We're moving to post-quantum for our encryption. So we just have to stay ahead of the adversary.
Do you encrypt in your OT networks?
What's that? Say that again?
You encrypting on your OT networks?
Not internal, external. Yeah. One of the zero trust technologies was you need to encrypt your OT environment. We said that's stupid. So we're not going to do that. There might be some that try that, but they're going to have dead systems if they try to do that. So waterfall, it's emerging technology for us. Stealth Path is Stealth Path was this little company that came to us like 3 years ago. I mean, little company, and their first presentation was horrible. And so we almost didn't bring them back because I was a little bit embarrassed for them. But they just kept after me. It's like, man, we can help you. We just got to tell us, help us help you. And so from an instant response capability, we've had to do multiple hunts. You know, if someone messes up in your environment, you hunt to make sure there's nothing in your environment. And it's called hunt and clear. We've never had to clear anything because we haven't found anything in our hunts. But you do dig in deep, you get into binary memory, you get into anything you could possibly think about in a IT, OT environment. We're down in the middle of it looking for adversarial presence. So they came with this tablet, and so I took it and I'm like, that would be pretty cool. You can plug it into your tabs, which I'll get to in a little bit, but it'll pull data for 15 minutes up to 36 hours, and from there you get live PCAP, packet captures. It's using machine learning and AI engines to evaluate known good, known bad, and when it's all said and done, I can create, if you have, like, let's say you have 50 tabs in an environment, I can pull data from 50 tabs, and it'll tie and create me a network map of everything that's going on in that environment. And who all has wonderful network diagrams of your environment, and they're exactly correct. Not many folks have that. This helps us make sure we have a correct network map before we start digging in. Lock chamber, so I'm gonna go in, since you guys are like a SOC, so talk about that a little bit. So we created our not a SOC, OT monitoring system from scratch. And everything we've done with our in-house labor. We don't have any contractors that work for the UKIC. And we created an environment and first thing you do is you select your sensor. And we selected CyberX, which CyberX was amazing. It detected all your OT protocols. So like Modbus, anybody heard of Modbus in the OT environment? DMP3, let's see, who else is there? SIP for Allen Bradley. So you got all these different protocols. Well, CyberX was made to detect anomalies in your operational technology protocols, along with your IT, your TCP IT stuff and UDP stuff. So we bought that, and it wasn't 2 months after we bought that, Microsoft come in and bought the company from them. And so I've been dealing with Microsoft for several years now. They're not been very good partners because they want to move everything to the Azure cloud. And there's a lot of places that for the cloud's good for, but OT is not a place to, good place to be when you're talking about your control systems that are controlling the environment you have in front of you. If you're a small power company, you know, you're looking at all your transformers and distribution lines. The cloud is not that secure of an environment to be in open source. So we kind of got to where we were. That's kind of the progress. So this is our monitoring system, and it's based out of Branson. So we have a couple 10 gig circuits that are bringing in data from around the United States. And when we bring them in, so this is a tap over there. See the tap? So the tap, what a tap does, that creates a place where you can tap into your network, Ethernet, but there's no way back into that environment. So you can use that to tap your environment to keep isolated from the actual network that you're protecting. And then the data diode, we put that out to push the IP stuff, syslog and the forwarders and sysmon. We push that out into our router where we have encrypted IPsec tunnels back into Branson. We're monitoring 101 locations, 8,000 endpoints right now, and we have thousands more to go, and probably 500 or 600 more sites to put sensors on. So it comes into here, and this is the center, so it's OT Monitoring Center. We have analysts in there, and so when they see anomalies, they're talking with the folks in the field, and they're giving them data. We have a malware lab, so once we go out to the field and we start doing a hunt and we see a strange file, we'll package that file up and we'll send it back into the malware lab, and we have a malware specialist that will go through that and tell if it's something we need to be concerned about, or if it's just a program that was loaded onto the system and doesn't mean anything. If we do find malware in the system, that goes directly to Army Cyber Command and NSA, because they love to hear about malware. So we use Splunk. Our SIEM is Splunk. So it took us a while to get to that, what SIEM we're going to use. We looked at SOAR. It's a DoD product. A lot of your solutions needed cloud tech connectivity for it to be able to function properly. And there's a reason that we haven't had anybody inside our networks. It's because how we protect it. So someone talked about deep packet expansion. Yep, we do 7-layer deep packet inspection on all of our networks. We use AI, like I said, to be able to, and it's challenging to keep all this up to date when you don't have any connectivity. And so it's very methodical. We bring in stuff into the lab, we test it, and then we push it out to the field for them to deploy. So we can hit everything right here. We can touch that from Branson. We just can't get inside that control system. It's protected. And we don't want to be inside there. We want to give that data to the people that are in the field and let them do their work. Keeps them up to date with technology and helps them stay abreast of what's going on inside their control systems. Anybody heard of the MITRE attack matrix? Yeah. So we cover everything in the MITRE attack matrix for OT except for rootkit, screen captures, and supply chain. Can't do supply chain, but we're in the middle of a contract with Tritium, and we're purchasing what is the name of that one? I have to get back with you on that, but because it's an OT supply chain risk management tool, and in the contract, if we suspect something is in our network, we can ship it up, send it to them, they'll tear it down for us and see if it has any bad chips, which is beaconing out, so we don't have to do that internally. And it's a United States company. What is the name of that company? Fortress, that's it. That's the one that we chose. So I'm gonna just pause here for a second, and before I bore you to death, questions on anything that you've seen or anything that's on our program slide. Yes, sir.
So as far as like attacks go, it sounds like you're pretty sophisticated in how you handle everything, which is good. But I was curious to see if someone were to be able to do like air gap attacks, because nation states are building those technologies out. Do you guys have like an incident plan for that? Or I know that's kind of a hard question, but
No, we expect that we're gonna be fighting against the air gap. So it can be different things. So we never say we're air gap, we're closed restricted. Air gap, I don't like that term because you never are really air gap. But that can be from someone bringing in a thumb drive. It can be insider threat, someone working for a contractor and they insert a disk or a thumb drive. There's different ways, but we have protections in place to detect all that. Yes, sir.
So I work for a manufacturing plant, and I work for a manufacturing plant, and so this definitely pertains to what I do on a day-to-day basis. You talking about a contractor coming in, they have a system, they need remote access to their stuff. I mean, we have to block it in most cases. I don't have a really good remote access because, we shut down, like LogMeIn, all those clients like that. TeamViewer's off, AnyDesk is off. What's a good way to provide remote access? I mean, we're trying to use an E1, but even that in itself is kind of limited.
Yeah, we just don't allow access into our environment unless we have a caveat. Unless they're at a Corps of Engineers facility and we can bring them in and someone can watch over their keystrokes. Because the bad thing about remote access, you don't know who's behind that keyboard. And so that's what you're protecting is that. So we've done it different ways. We brought in, can you still hear me? we brought in, they hate it, but we do like Microsoft Teams chat where they can tell us what the tide, and somebody on site will be putting the information into the system. It just depends on how tight you want your security to be. And for us, the consequences, the likelihood's low, but the consequences are great if someone is to use the our system and cause disruption. So we don't do it. Now, Army Munition Command, that's the biggest manufacturing one in the Army, and so they struggle with the same environment. They're not as tight as we are, and so they've had to deal with lots of stuff by not having good cybersecurity practices.
So that's kind of my question too, because you are using waterfalls, day in, day out, so that eliminates any capability of a contractor to be able to view your system. So so you're basically manually doing that.
I mean, I guess that's a tough one. I mean, we struggle with it. To be quite honest with you, because there are people out in the field are like, come on, man, they need to get out here and do this. Well, we say, put it in your contract when you write it, that you have to come on site.
Yeah.
Just depends on how critical your environment is. If it's not that critical, try to set up a secure remote connection. And some can be done, some not so much. So you just have to be, that's one of your biggest holes when you start out into your network. We just don't do it. And all kinds of complaints. But they don't get to go home if someone breaks into their network like I do. So they have the good idea for he's running wild with how you should be able to do this, but ultimately, I'm the one that handles all the risk that goes on with the Corps of Engineers. So we have our own vulnerability management plans. So there's, CISA puts out alerts all the time, and so once you have your inventory, we take the alerts and we're looking at what's out in the environment, and we're submitted out to the field and have them give us a timeline of when they can patch the environment. And in the meantime, we're pulling down the patches and we're testing them in the lab environment in Branson and getting ready to be able to send those out to the field. We use Blu-ray drives to send out data. We use disk. We were using encrypted hard drives, 256 AES hard drives, but we found out that recently, like last week, that they had some bad chipsets in there. So now we have to come up with another solution. So we've stopped sending out encrypted hard drives to the field. We're just going to use Blu-ray and disk to send the data to the field. So we'll just stick the disk in a mailer, send it to them, and it'll all be tested, free of malware, and they can deploy it. Feel free that we've tested on the actual environment that's at their facilities. Yes, sir.
So you're saying you ship it out like a USPS or something to the Bonneville or wherever it's.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Is there any concern for like a supply chain type attack where somebody can get in, take over, and
they'd have to
maybe switch the.
They'd have to bust into U.S. mail. We use U.S. mail, but they are also when we button up that disk, you can't get into it unless we give you the encryption codes to get into it. So we don't really, if they get it, they go, woohoo, we got this. Yippee-ki-yay, look at us.
When you say bad chipset, what do you mean?
Has stuff in it that could be detrimental to the environment it's working in. When I say bad chipset, so it's got malicious stuff inside them. So that's a hard answer, but there's a lot of stuff that's very much classified when you start getting into that environment.
Do you have any recommendations on how
normal size organizations can do supply chain risk management to guard, like are there publications that go out or make lists they can subscribe to?
So Department of Energy has his group called CSER, and they're supposed to be, for energy, for like small co-ops, they're supposed to be, you're supposed to be able to work with them and get some good supply chain information from them, but they're not there. We worked with them for a while, and we ended up doing a lot of the teaching instead of them helping us. So they're trying to get. We've just been doing this for so long, and a lot of agencies are just now beginning to do it. So CSER, I think for power companies might be good. I would say reach out to me, and we can help you, but we're not there yet. But I think it's critical enough that I would potentially work with some small power companies to evaluate what you're purchasing before you purchase it. It's too dangerous not to help each other anymore.
So, you have a really mature program. And I'm really curious, what was the driving factor of getting the buy-in within this organization?
It was so not about me, but it's going to be about me for a little bit. So I came in to the Corps with IT cyber experience and OT experience. I configured my first firewall in 1996. So Cisco PIX firewall. And so we started doing it for different projects across the country, just securing their OT environment. And then I presented it in Dallas to some senior executive staff for USACE. And the next thing I know, I'm getting called up to Washington, D.C. Country Mounts goes to the city here. And so I went into D.C. with a baseball cap on and a polo shirt and went in and talked to 3 executive leaders for the Corps of Engineers, including the CIO, and presented how we do this. And the next day I had an appointment memo that put me over everything in the Corps of Engineers for this OT program, cybersecurity program. And so from that point, it has been brute force from me pushing, because Corps of Engineers is 250 years old, I believe, yesterday or something like that. And so trying to put a cybersecurity program into an organization that builds locks and dams and infrastructure, it has been a challenge in my life trying to get it done, but we're there.
So, you mentioned 32 people that work for you. So, was it only 32 people that developed all these programs, architecture?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
Impressive.
They're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. We don't have any turnover. We keep people happy working. I run it like private industry. I don't run it like a government agency, because you can't reward people when you're working for the federal government, but you can sure let them enjoy their environment they're working in, and that's what we do. We have a lot of fun. We laugh. We play, and we get really serious when we have to. But when we don't need to, we're having fun with stuff, and that's how we do it. We have 10 openings because we're building out more, but right now there's a huge hiring freeze in the federal government. You can't hire. They're firing people like crazy, and so that's kind of where you are right now with that. 42 would be good. It'd be good to have that 10 extra staff in the field. Yeah, that'd be great. Like I said earlier, we were all remote employees. They were out in the field, but now we're having to try to find them locations to hang their hat at. And we in their homes, we put in OT lab environments for them to test on. So we can send stuff out to them and they can test it in their environment. Because different region of the country, they do things differently. So your labs in people's homes, they have the equipment that they need for that part of the United States. And the big lab is in Branson, and that's where we do all the major testing. We test protective relays, Schweitzer relays. We look for vulnerabilities in all the equipment that's out there. I don't know, you name it, we do it. We have some, we've had to learn offensive capabilities because that's the best way to know how to secure something is know how to take it down. Pen testing, I think I put 10 people through a pen testing class, and it wasn't really pen testing. It was put on by the NSA, but it was how you get into a system and then do what you need to do and back out without getting caught. And if you got caught, you flunked the class. So that's the environment that we have to live in to be as good as you can be in this environment.
And you validate all your patches?
Yes.
You said you had 100 control systems now?
Yeah, we are downloading patches continuously. And so for OT we do, it's like a 30-day patch cycle. So when we get through with one patch cycle, we're bringing it down to the next patch cycle. We're getting it ready, and we're testing in between. Because in the federal government, there is no consistency. You just go buy what you want. And so that means when I say we have hundreds of control systems, we have control systems because that's what's out there in the world. And so you can't just sit on your laurels with the new stuff. You got to look at the legacy stuff because that's your most vulnerable components. And a lot of stuff there's no patches for your legacy stuff, so we have to protect it from the boundary defense. And we do have interconnections because we interface with the power marketing agencies. We interface with mostly DOE for the grid type stuff. Take care.
Thank you.
So those are the tightest protection that we have. And we use zero trust technology, zero trust buzzword, but there is some really true stuff you can do with zero trust. And so some of on your boundary defense, so if you're using a Palo Alto as your firewall, then your encryption is going to be a Cisco. If your boundary defense is a Juniper firewall, then you might use Palo Alto for encryption. So the adversary doesn't have a good way in. You got to learn two different environments to be able to come in or to feature encryption. Yes, sir.
He actually has a question for you.
Oh, I was just gonna say, obviously you're working with a lot of different agencies, and you said you guys are really efficient. Would you credit that to the fact that it's, you and 32 employees hard stop making final decisions? Because you have you get malware, you send it somewhere. If you get something else, you send it somewhere. Whereas 32 people are working strictly on protecting your environment.
No, in the lab environment?
Yeah.
So in the lab environment. Oh, I'll just bring it up. Yeah, picture's worth 1,000 words. Where's lab? Anybody see lab on here? There it is. So we have a mock-up lab, you have a patch lab. You have OT innovation. That's where we're testing the latest and greatest innovations out there. We have forensic lab, where we can tear into anything we want to do forensic analysis on. We have OT exercise lab, we have a physical security lab. The one that's not on here is the malware lab. So it's just a big sandbox. And that's the one that you don't touch. You don't touch it. There's malware in there, that's live stuff. But so we stay on the cutting edge. So these are controllers. If you've never seen controllers, PLCs, anything like that. These are relays that operate your infrastructure. So you're sitting at the PLC sends a digital command, and then the relay has the voltage tied to it that actually is going to control what's going on out in the field. And then in here, these are just racks and racks of equipment. We have NAS, we have SAN, a NAS, Splunk. Then we have, if you can imagine it, we have it in the lab. And everything Wes talked about, I'm like, okay, yeah, so that's good stuff. You guys have a great opportunity right here because they're hitting the big buckets for you guys to be able to learn and understand. So we do intern. We have, we put together, I think I have 3 positions on the books, and that doesn't count for the 42, but it's paid internship. So I'm very picky who I bring in, as you can tell.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And if someone ever does come in that doesn't really work out that well, they don't stay very long. So I make mistakes every now and then when it comes to hiring actions, but I try to get a good feel of people. And I'm not necessarily looking for skills. I'm looking for personality. I'm looking for the drive to be able to work all hours of the night. You know, do you have that capability to be able to do that? I'm looking for great attitudes, people that want to have fun. You know, well-rounded. You always hear about that in job interviews. You're looking for, and I'm really serious about well-rounded folks that come in. We got geeks, nerds. I mean, we have it all, man. But if we got one of our malware guy, he's kind of like Sheldon. You guys Sheldon? And I have to tell him that's sarcasm, Colton. But he's getting better. Yes, sir.
How do you obtain the skills and knowledge that you're talking about to do all this stuff?
There is, well, we do a good job of training. We hold in-house classes on how to do things, like how to program different levels of programmable logic controllers, how to program Palo Alto, how to program Cisco, how to program network devices. We teach that in-house, and we bring folks in from all across the United States, come in, and we do those small classes, 6 to 8 people, and we're teaching them how to configure everything in a secure posture. And then we use the SANS courses. I think we do, I'll probably get my numbers wrong. I think we start with 410, then it goes to the 500 series, there's a couple in there, and I send people to forensic training, and malware training, and then there's even training for doing hunt environments. We send them out to that. So we're very good at training people. You can't let, to be good, you got to keep their skill sets alive. And so we have a huge training budget. Most of those classes, like going to a SANS class, that's between $6,000 and $8,000 a pop to go to those, and then training, then travel on top of that. And so there's that's how you have to do it. And we have we work directly with, I'm going to show you that. So we work directly with Army Cyber Command, and so we were, in 2016, we started our first hunt with Army Cyber Protection Teams, and it was 154. So now they have 3. So we train all their cyber protection teams that are associated with operational technology here in Branson. So we take them down, we take them into Table Rock, and first we teach them how to not get killed in a power plant environment. And then we start talking about arc flash and things like that, but then we get them into the electrical side and the programmable logic controllers so that they have the skill sets. And then once we show them what's out there, then we bring them back into the lab environment and let them hone their skills for a couple weeks in that environment so they can get used to any type of PLC you want, Allen Bradley, Siemens, GE. We bring them in there and let them start working in that environment so they won't mess something up when they get into the field when they're trying to chase something down. This is a training that we recommend that they go through. And they use the training that we give them to take. And one thing we're doing right now is we're writing the first OT policy for U.S. Army. And the CIO will be pushing that out. So it's a paradigm shift because everybody is an IT environment, and this is the first OT policy that's going to be pushed out all across the Army.
It's gonna be the OWASP OT Top 10 soon.
Huh?
It's gonna be the OWASP OT Top 10 soon.
That's right, man. That's right. It's funny how when you're trying to write a policy in Army, how many people are the most experienced people in the world on OT. So it's kind of interesting environment to work in. Try to get that pushed out. Oh, yes, sir.
So I've actually sat on some talks from Robert Graham that works at CISA, and very sharp guy. Like I went to lunch with him, and it was a great experience.
Who was first one?
Robert Graham from CISA.
Okay.
And anyway, I know that they have like a service where you can subscribe, and then they can do like external pen tests on your environment, things like that. I was curious to see how close your collaboration is with them on OT, if you guys have that or you don't, because I know that he was talking about that. I was curious. Because they also have a framework too where you can scan your system with those, like, it's like its own framework. You know what I mean? I was curious to see if you guys were
Is that for OT? Or is that just an IT environment?
I think it's an IT environment, but I was curious if you guys have the same for like an OT. I know that's kind of difficult, but
Well,
I'm curious.
So we're very fortunate. So we have the red team that is inside the Corps of Engineers, and I fund them to do their mission. And so we bring them in. They do pen testing on systems in Army. You know, think about what Army has. So you got weapons. You have industrial base. And so they do the pen testing on those environments. And so they come in into our environment, and they keep us honest too.
As you need, right?
Yeah. So your pen testers, that's typically your most arrogant people in the world. So that doesn't fly for me. So they found out really quick that to work with us, check your ego at the door. Because what I did was I said, come on into the lab environment, bring your red team in, and do what you would do to an OT environment, what you think is right. And so they were in the environment for a couple days. Then they finally came to my office. They said, hey, Phil, we just destroyed all your PLCs. I said, you guys must have done ACAS scans or Nessus or some type of active scanning. They go, yeah, that's part of how we do pen testing. I go, that's true. That's what you do in an IT environment. OT is very tender. And so my lecture to them was, you got to get better at what you're doing because we need you to be the best that you can be for us to be the best that we can be protecting it. And don't be coming here being sloppy because we're already facing nation states that are not sloppy.
Right.
And so they're very good. So we have that in our corner, thank goodness. Very smart people. So like for the exercise, they simulated Bolt Typhoon and Dragonfly simultaneously.
That's cool.
In our environment, it was Lex Luthor and it was a Superman theme. Lex Luthor and who's the other bad guy for Superman?
Bizarro.
Huh? Yeah, it was him. One of those was Volt Typhoon and one was Dragonfly. So that's how we keep it fun. And so you got these big dogs in there. The Department of Energy CIO came in and spent 3 days with us. Ann Duncan, she left in January. Boy, that was a sad day for DOE. So we had some major big players come into the exercise to see how we ran it. Because it really is a great environment to learn in. It's a training exercise, so there is no fault. If you turn something over, you turn it over. If we laugh at you, make fun of you, but then we move on. So that's the environment that we create, and so it's pretty interesting stuff.
Thank you very much.
So here's my closing remarks. And so I present at, I think the largest crowd I presented to was like 7,500 people. What I like to teach people how to secure their operational technology environments. So if I go through this whole presentation, it takes me quite a while to get through it. But people sit and listen because they're very interested in how to do this. Because you're like Wes was saying, you got these places across Missouri, they don't know, they don't have any idea what they're up against, and they don't know how to secure their environments. So I try to break it down into very simple things that you can do to secure your environments. Because nobody wants to get compromised. Compromises can be dangerous. Ransomware, we don't really worry too much about ransomware. But what companies do on ransomware is they keep their backups on the same network and they get encrypted also, then you can't restore. So I would say, the first question I ask when they get ransomed, where are your backups? You got them off site? Or you got them they're on our same environment? I go, that's gonna be a tough one. You ever heard of bare bone rebuild? That's what you're getting ready to do. Or pay the fee. That's your choices at that point.
Paper records, right?
Huh?
Paper records, right?
Yeah, well, not paper records, but there's ways to back it up and block it, so you can protect your data. Colonial Pipeline, that was the worst one ever. They didn't know if their operational environment was separated from their IT environment, so they shut down everything. You got to know your networks. You got to understand your networks. You got to have your network segmentation. Then you can move forward with securing your environment. So it's a big team effort. We all have to work together. That's why I said, when we get set up with our supply chain risk management, I might open it up for folks that want to call and say, hey, can you guys check this out for us? Because they're coming, and we got to stay ahead of them. That's it. I'll turn it back over to you guys.
All right, can we get a round of applause? Present you here with a MCCOE blinker. See if you're ever out there running and walking your dog.
Oh, that's amazing.
Pass that to her there. I can turn it off there. But great questions. Anything else for Phil?
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Again, let's give him another round of applause. So there's more cookies left, more waters. Please socialize, enjoy. Thanks again for coming out.
To our students.
So remember, on the 19th of May, we're going to have another session here on cybersecurity, reverse engineering, and code. So, presentation here by Brandon.